Can you hear me okay? Does my mic need to go up a little bit more? Can you raise my mic up a little? Test 1, 2, 3. Is that better? Everybody can hear me back there? Good. Okay. So my name is Gary Kayye, and I'm honored to be asked to lead the panel discussion of experts that we have here today, and we've got some great experts here. This is, of course, you're here at the Almo Pro AV show here in Irvine, California, the first of the fall E4 tour stops. And the point of this panel is for us to introduce you to the experts. And I'm going to maybe seed a couple of questions to them, but we're going to mostly open it up to you and those of you online who are watching to ask questions of the panelists, because that's what they're here for. They all have expertise in specific areas of the market. So what I'd like for you guys to do is go through and introduce yourselves real quick and basically say who you are and who you're with and what you do.
My name is Clayton Price. I am co-founder of Movie Murals. We are a content and hardware integrator for really high fidelity visuals.
My name is Brian Radigan. I'm a business development manager for Almo, and I specialize in helping dealers with digital signage and signal distribution.
I'm Jamie Finnegan. I'm also a business development manager for Almo, and I'm responsible for control solutions for our dealer base.
Dave Arnott with NEC Display Solutions. I'm also a business development manager working with the consulting community.
My name is April Griswold. I work with Almo Pro AV, and I'm a business development manager on the team. I work with our specialty display lines as well as audio.
And this session is brought to you by, as you probably can tell from the great Brain Freeze cups, not only by Almo, but also brought to you by NEC. NEC's sponsoring this session, so we should thank them for bringing us all these frozen desserts. And a couple of you are taking advantage of that, but they're right outside, and unfortunately those of you who are watching online don't get a chance. But the first question I want to see to you guys is I would like to, I think Clayton is probably the best question for you. There's certainly a move on industry-wide. There's a lot of buzz going around about 4K resolution displays. And I said earlier this morning in my keynote that I saw there's really two real good applications for 4K, in my opinion. One was 4K solves the 3D issue. 4K and 3D, glasses free, looks awesome. I think people will be super impressed once they see it. And then the second thing is, for true collaboration, if you can imagine putting up a digital canvas on the wall and making it 4K resolution, then I can put 4 1080p images side by side or stacked or whatever, and I get a full resolution on everything. But where do we stand on 4K? What's the status right now? I mean, is this going to be another 3D where it comes and goes and really doesn't have an impact on our market? What's your opinion?
Well, first off, I think 4K UHD adoption, it's happening. The hardware manufacturers have invested a lot of money, and they're not going to go backwards in terms of like, oh, hey, we put together 8.4 million pixels, and now we're going to go back to 2.1. I don't see that happening. But it is going to be a process with a lot of growing pains. We're already experiencing those growing pains because the manufacturers are way ahead of playback solutions in terms of widespread consumer options. And actually that's kind of where our company comes in, and I totally agree with you, Gary, is that if you start to use 4K display technology as not just traditional television or movies or gaming, but you use it as something as like a digital signage application or a digital canvas where you're taking non-narrative visuals and pumping it with super high fidelity signal, you can really create an amazing viewer experience that just can't be replicated out there. I can't tell you how many times I've been out there in the field with 4K panels, and we create uncompressed content players. So you're looking at 4,777 megabits a second is what our data stream is on our content. And people feel like they walk up to it and they make jokes about how they're going to like step into it because it becomes a portal into another world. And being able to cut down your viewing distance as well in half as it relates to 1080p is pretty phenomenal, and it becomes living print for digital signage. There's all kinds of really interesting applications that this is what's going to happen, guys. Walls, floors, ceilings, tables. We have emerging digital display technologies that are going to be able to be put on all of that. And we're going to live in a world where you can determine your environment. And it's coming. We just need to figure out how we're going to embrace that, and whether we're just satisfied with movies and television shows and that kind of traditional content pushing away, or whether we're going to adopt these alternative routes and take advantage of that.
So you see it as a way, sort of a doorway into truly immersing people into an environment. Go ahead.
Absolutely. It's especially coupled with sound and a multisensory experience. You're just gonna, it's the closest thing to virtual reality that we're gonna have, and we're gonna be able to really shape environments, and in terms of design as well, designers and architects and anyone in health and wellness, hospitality, any kind of entertainment is going to love the types of applications that are coming along because of the pixel density.
All of us have probably seen 4K because it's the primary technology used in most digital cinema theaters, except what they've done, of course, is put it on a giant screen, so you're not seeing the compressed pixel resolution that you're talking about, where if you take the same quality image, put it on a smaller display, then now you're getting sort of a true to life. And Dave, I think this would be a good time for you to sort of address this, because don't you think 4K sort of with this whole trend in pixel mapping, especially live event pixel mapping, as popular that's getting, and image seam, to build a world like he's talking about, you're going to have to do some amazing image seaming of images together, and you come from that side on the hardware side,
Right.
being with NEC.
Right, Gary, thank you. Absolutely, as we'll talk about tiling or edge blending as we see it. It was a technology that we always looked at. It was very complicated, expensive, difficult, time-consuming to achieve. As now as technology, like even the projector side, especially has evolved, and technology's improved. Not only the lamp life has increased, and I'll maybe go into solid state. These projector, the technology can then be used in these digital display environments, so that we can really start to think, taking a projector as we see it here behind us, if it was on, and starting to use that technology on any surface that we can find, where we can stitch high resolution projectors. In this case, it's 1080p, let's say, currently, and then going up to some of the 2K machines, to be able to easily to integrate those together. And that technology has now really integrated into the projectors, not only on the high end, but even in the medium size installation projectors, where it's not that complicated to do at this point. And then as we take which then becomes important is we take it for content, and then let the content people decide what they want to do on that big palette that we can give them. So we definitely want to see that projector technology being used in different realms than just our front projection presentation technology.
Yeah, and with that kind of resolution, you get a whole different depth of resolution in a way, because especially with image mapping, where I'm sure you've all seen videos where people have done image mapping on the side of buildings, and you're creating sort of a story out of that building. A lot of famous ones done in Europe, where probably my favorite one is this clock tower story, where they did like the history of the town projected on the side of the clock tower, and they made the clock tower come to life. I mean, it's one thing to fill that clock tower horizontally and vertically with pixels, but to add the depth, that's what the advantage of a high-resolution display provides. But you can now do that with even smaller, less resolution displays by putting multiple displays together.
Correct. I mean, right now, we have the technology with NEC with basically a $3,000 projector that has the ability and the simplicity to actually map these overlap and do a nice edge blend, and to extend, like you're saying, vertically and horizontally with those products.
And this kind of brings it, Brian, I mean, you're the signal routing and distribution expert. That's got to be a nightmare, because it's not as simple as plugging an input into one projector and getting it to happen. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of development going on, and certainly things are moving towards network-based content, which we talked about this morning.
Right.
What's your feeling on that? Where are we right now with that?
Well, HD-based T is becoming a lot more prevalent. We're seeing it going to be built into a lot more devices. As Gary had mentioned earlier, you have video, control, audio, and power all over a single cable. And distance-wise, it's the same as Ethernet, so you can get 100 meters on the cable length.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things going on. I mean, I don't know how many of you were in the keynote this morning where I talked about HD-based T, but that's sort of a standard that I think all the signal routing and distribution companies, to my knowledge, have all adopted HD-based T.
For the most part, because now the price is starting to become a little more affordable. With HDMI extenders, initially a lot of them were over dual Cat5, and you'll still find some of those that are still around, and they're inexpensive, but you're going to be limited as far as distance and resolution. The HD-based T now, transmitters and receivers have become a lot more affordable, so you can get that high res over a much longer distance.
And we're talking about all the control system manufacturers, signal routing distribution manufacturers. And are they doing audio as a byproduct, April, or are they focusing on audio the same, or is AVB going to win the audio war as far as that goes, or what, are they going to run side by side? Are we eventually going to see AVB part of HD-based T or vice versa, or what's going to happen?
I think right now, I think that honestly, we're not seeing enough audio when it comes to digital signage applications. In many cases, you know, people are thinking about the video, and it's like the content piece is really important, but I feel like audio is an underutilized extra layer and added way to capture attention of a customer, as well as retain their interest and retain that image going forward. So I think that there's a huge potential for integrators to really work with their end users and develop audio as another element of the total system.
And you're talking specifically of digital signage, but what about in general, like boardroom, conference room, training room? How are we doing? I mean, obviously we're putting audio in all those environments. Is that all still being done the old-fashioned way, or has AVB become more popular? Or
I'll chime in on this
Okay,
one.
go ahead.
I mean, at least from what I've seen, AVB has not been adopted by the major signal distribution companies like AMX and Crestron. They're all HD-based T systems, which is carrying the audio, because in many cases the audio is integrated with the HDMI and the video coming into your switch, and then they're using HD-based T to transport that. I haven't not seen AVB in those types of
Right,
products.
and what's happening, right? But companies like, that ringing is driving me crazy. If there's an audio guy here. Speaking of audio, come on, Josh, you
Got an
can do
audio
it.
guy here somewhere.
Yeah, there's a couple of them coming down here. What's happened is, you're right, but in the case of TOA, Biamp, Harman, I mean, all these guys have, they're traditional audio companies. They've all adopted AVB. What you're saying though is the traditional AV signal routing distribution are doing audio as a byproduct of they're not focused on video as their primary thing, and oh, by the way, we can do audio too, and they're doing that across HD-based T. But if you're doing systems that are primarily audio, then you're seeing AVB be used. You would agree with that?
Personally, I really haven't seen it yet in those types of applications. Because even like the AMX, they're putting all these devices into now a single unit.
Right.
Okay, so like the Crestron Digital Media, the AMX DVX system, there's amplifier built right into that product.
Yeah.
It's a switch, an amplifier, scaler, everything. So you're connecting your speakers directly to the switch.
Right. So, all right. Well, what about other technologies? What kind of questions do we have here from those who are in attendance that might want to ask one of the panelists? Yes.
Since 4K is a new technology, do you see that being scaled down to mobile devices, and how far do you see that that's going to happen? Also, I have the second part of the question is, since this is a new technology, most of us have not really worked with it, what would happen if we were to take a 4K content and try to display it on 1080p display?
Okay, so that's two questions. So is 4K going to move down to smaller and possibly even mobile devices? I assume you're talking about mobile devices as in phones and tablets?
Yeah.
Okay, and then so tablets obviously probably be more likely. And then the second question is, can you plug 4K into a 2K or 1080p display? All right.
So I'll take the first part of that for sure. As far as I just lost, what was the first question?
Tablets, mobile devices.
4K and small
Yeah, of
devices.
course. So the Retina revolution is obviously come and gone, and we all have iPad 3 or a variety like the iPhone is basically a Retina type of device, but it all depends on viewing distance, of course. Now, when you're dealing with viewing distances, do we need something that's 2 inches by 1.5 inches to be, to hold 3840 by 2160? I would say no, because you're not getting anything on top of that unless you're looking at it about this far away. But At the same time, depending on form factor and what you might be using it for, I could see some people, especially in the tablet and larger smartphone areas, eventually adopting a UHD platform for their devices.
In fact, the new iPad is rumored to be not 4K, but it's rumored to be almost 3K by 2K. So it's rumored to have a hybrid between 4K and 2K. But then as far as plugging in, I can address the question. Most projectors now are using scalers to scale down 4K to 2K. The ones that don't, if they do, they have that in their specification. If they don't, list it, then they obviously can't do it. But more and more projector manufacturers are seeing that there's going to be a need for that. More likely what you're going to see is the other way around, though, scaling 2K up to 4K, because scaling 4K down to 2K really kind of destroys the signal, but scaling 2K up to 4K actually looks really good. The 2K to 4K scaling technology, there was a display that Sony had in their booth at Infocom that demonstrated this, and it was very impressive. So I think you'll see more of that the other direction. Josh?
When no film is scanned, it's usually 2 or 4K. So film is captured for cinema, it's scanned to 4K, it is 4K content.
Right.
That's our baseline.
Yeah, that's what most, it's interesting, because Josh just was pointing out, for those of you who couldn't hear what he was saying, that digital films are captured at 4K resolution, so that's your native resolution. I mean, there's some movement to move up to 8K now, because of course 4K is hackneyed by now. But at the same time, and I also just read at the same time, J.J. Abrams is shooting the new Star Wars Episode 7 in film. He's actually shooting it in film. He's not shooting it digitally. So there's some directors sort of going back to film because they like that sort of look. We kind of skipped over we skipped over you, Jamie.
That's okay.
I'd like to ask you.
That's all right.
I'd like to seed a question to you, because I believe your expertise is control systems.
Yep.
And there's one of the questions that was asked during my keynote, at the end of the keynote, which I didn't have a chance to really properly answer, is with all these changes and sort of how the industry's moving as rapidly as it's moving, and we're moving into to see on the consumer side set-top boxes that have integrated control in them and other devices. How much longer will control systems survive as standalone control systems, or are we all being naive there?
I think that it's a tough. I mean, I think that overall there's always going to be a need for a large control system that can handle enterprise type deployment, where there's a lot of control points that are on the network that need to be managed, that need to be centrally managed and controlled. So I think there's always going to be that need. There's always going to be that need for a solution that's open-ended and fully customizable. I don't necessarily see that going away anytime soon. What I've seen the migration and what's been taking place, and Brian kind of already alluded to it, is these all-in-one type solutions that really bring it all into one box, from not only from a hardware perspective, but then also from a deployment perspective. So then you have a turnkey cloud-based configuration type solution that allows you to take everything from this UI and then pull it down locally and then send it into the box and go. So more of I think a lot of dealers have suffered through a lot of years of having to have smaller bread and butter type projects be science projects, and for no reason, and so there's a migration from companies like AMX, who are trying to provide solutions that for the bread and butter type control applications, they can provide a hardware and a software package that allows dealers to deploy much more efficiently. So I don't necessarily think there's going to be a unilateral shift across the board. I think it's really going to depend on the application, but I think when you look at large integrators across the country, they're still doing very large control deployments, and they're all customizable and fully customized is really what I'm trying to say.
AMX is a good example, because AMX has actually significantly differentiated themselves, quite honestly, from the other control system companies with their touch panels. Because as even more and more people are going to iPads for touch interfaces, AMX has gone to widescreen, edge-to-edge glass, sort of push the aesthetic of the touch panel rather than just being just the utility of the touch panel.
And interestingly enough, too, what I've seen, I mean, I have to say, I was when Apple I kind of have shifted a little still selling a lot of relatively expensive panels in applications where it's warranted. And so, you know, the Not yet. I mean, I can see where you're going, and I can see value in that, and I think there's going to be, you know, a migration maybe towards that, but in terms of that being a reality at this point, not really. I mean, you know, for better or for worse, AMX still relies on a platform that's a code-based solution that, you know, you can write one line of code and make it do a lot, right? And that's really what it's built around. And that's really part of the beauty and the power of it, what it can do for what it's built for. But, you know, this free form, you know, let me just drop whatever I want on top of what I'm doing to make it do whatever I want, you know, in a computer-based environment, you know, there's probably some merit to the control world migrating towards that, but there's not anything that I see that's going to really bring that to a reality anytime soon, from my perspective. So,
Josh, on your world of IT guys, they have a fault tolerance that's pretty low. You reboot a system, you can run VM on something, and you're just basically saving your energy getting up from the table to go do something. In the world of automation, even home level, it has to have a more robustness. So they have to be baked in and tested. And that's why boxes that are stacked with software just put on top. Kind of okay for print server configurations, but utilities are hard for systems for people going, why aren't the lights coming on?
Yeah, so for those of you who are watching online, Josh just made a point that in the AV world, we wouldn't accept just rebooting something when it stops working. We want it to not ever stop working. And I tend to agree with you on that. That's the reason why Apple is kicking everybody's butt right now, right? I mean, in the world of desktop computing, the problem is there's not a lot of application development going on outside of what Apple's doing for themselves on the OS platform, other than their iOS stuff. So, but yeah, where I do see that though is, and I think you would agree with this, is from a management standpoint. Where you're managing a facility and you're using third-party tools or existing tools out there, those companies like AMX and Crestron are connecting to those tools, and you are seeing those tools do sort of whole building and whole facility management virtually, rather than as a dedicated product.
Yeah, there used to be a pretty big gap between, you know, between BMS and control solutions. Well, now that gap is bridging. Now you're seeing more of a streamlined, handshake, unified approach to kind of the individual AV control solutions talking to, you know, BMS type applications. So where there's a building management solution being put in place. You know, there used to be, I mean, you know, there's a lot of different buses that are in play there that have been around for a long time, LawnWorks and BACnet and KNX, and those have been around for a long time. And there used to be this gap between, you know, that control bus that played in that world, and then, you know, the AMXs and the Crestrons of the world, and nobody really knew what to do with them, you know. And now you're seeing this kind of morphing and coming together more seamlessly, so that there's not that gap anymore. I think you'll see that continue for sure.
And one thing that sort of has surprised our side of the market, I'm assuming that you come from more that have an expertise on the IT side or facility-wide control. Yeah. Well, then you've probably noticed this as well. We've expected that side of the world to come after the AV side for years. Like we always thought building management system companies that build these huge systems, you know, i.e. Honeywell or whoever else you want to mention, would come into the AV world, but they've really not. In fact, what they've done is opened up their systems to be connected via Crestron or AMX or for that matter, anybody's, you know, through RS-232 and even direct IP control.
Absolutely.
So I think they're actually working together, and I think they've decided that, there's some overlap though, because security, lighting control is another big overlap area where both sides want lighting for the whole building, and security, of course, and HVAC. But and then of course this kind of begs the next question, and that is there's the home side. I mean, you've got these home control capabilities that are moving up to the commercial market as well. Where, I mean, even in our own office, we took the HVAC controller out of our office and put it in a Nest. The home, it was really aimed for the home, but then now you can connect the Nests all together, so you can do a whole building that way. So I do see a movement in that direction. So I do think that is going to go through an evolutionary change at some point in time. I would agree with you. What about other technology questions? Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned something about 8K and manufacturers are moving into that.
In Hollywood, camera companies.
Okay. But
Yeah.
I mean, does that in any way mean that the 4K could be just a transitional technology?
Well, no, I don't think so. 4K, here's the thing with 4K. There's so much money invested in 4K right now, meaning the people that decided that cinema was going to be done this way decided that on the front end, the middle, and the back end distribution was all going to be done, and they decided long ago this was what they were going to use. Could it possibly change 20 years from now? Absolutely. It could possibly change 20 years from now, but it isn't going to be. It's not like they're going to say, oh my gosh, we now can do 8K. What you will see, however, you could possibly see IMAX go to 8K or something higher resolution than that, or custom form factor applications where you're doing complete immersion, where you go into higher resolution applications like that. And I would see, in fact, I happened to see, I think I told you during the keynote last weekend, I saw Gravity in IMAX. You can see the squares. I mean, I had to sit up front because there were no more seats. And it was the best place to sit. I can't imagine sitting anywhere else because I was completely immersed in the movie. But the thing that did drive me crazy was I could see the individual pixels. So I could definitely see them going to 8K and solving that problem. But of course, that means that the content has to be changed to really take advantage of that. Melody, you have a question online?
I've got a question for you then. What are you seeing trends in video walls?
Oh, good question. I'd say NEC should start with that. What do you think?
Trends in video walls. I mean, right now we're working. We've got the like the 46-inch to 55-inch sizes. We're soon to get smaller and smaller bezel sizes in the video wall market. We've got requests for lower light output units as well. I think there's also been talk to go to an LCD-based smaller size unit to go into like a 19 or a 20-inch size with almost like a zero bezel type video wall. And then there has been talk of even going to like a 70-inch size video wall.
So some of the trends you see is larger Legos, larger building elements.
Exactly, with Legos with smaller bezels. I mean, that's really the
And
key.
smaller bezels.
The key, exactly. I mean, every time we've gone and done a video wall demo, everyone's first reaction is the bezel size. Once we can put some content and start looking at the content and not the bezel, it tends to relieve them. We've done so many installations in corporations is for presentation screens where you'd think it would be adverse to have this grid pattern, on a presentation screen. But then, just because of the characteristics of that technology, where I can keep the lights on, I can reduce glare with the correct screen. I have a wide viewing angle. Lends itself even to that nature. But we see it's. For us, that market has exploded. In every facet, from digital signage to corporate boardrooms as well.
Yeah, I mean, especially in retail.
Yep.
And sort of welcome screen applications, for lack of a better term. A lot of universities are going to video walls, and in retail, it's really
In retail, we've done some of our biggest installations in the retail environment, where we're talking about hundreds of screens in particular stores that way. And also the video wall, we do a lot. We talk about the QSR, quick serve restaurants, with their menu boards going from static menu boards over to the dynamic screens now.
April? Go ahead.
Yeah, just to add to that, I agree. I think that the size of the video walls is both getting larger, thinking people are considering a larger display as well as smaller sizes. as well as mixing different sizes together and also really unique configurations. When we think about traditional video walls, if we want to call them traditional, you think about them in a rectangular kind of format, whether they're, horizontal or in landscape format. But what we're really seeing is different locations for the walls, as well as, the clients, the end users, as well as consultants, and sort of everybody in between being a little bit more creative in how they set those up. So it used to be that everything, was either, it was rectangular in some form or fashion, 2x2, 3x3, and now we're seeing, that people want to step outside of that and do something unique. Whether it's Christie Microtiles, and you have an installation that has a completely jagged edge on the top and the content, vanishes in a museum application, or maybe it's even a corporate client who, traditionally might put something, a single display, or maybe they're considering, a 90-inch or 75-inch for the lobby. They're now considering putting something that is, 2 stories high, but maybe a narrower display or a stair-step effect or something circular, something recessed, something that comes out at you into like a staircase, a 2-level staircase, which, again, everything has to, they tie it back to how they're going to use it, what kind of content they're playing on it. But I think the use of displays in video wall applications, creating unique configurations, is a trend that we'll be continuing to see.
I'll add to that too. Just a comment as far as exactly what you're talking about with different shaped walls and whatnot. Being very careful to manage your customers' expectations, because I can't tell you how many calls I get where they say my customer's looking for a 3x2 video wall, and I start asking about what's going to be shown on it, and they're going to be, well, it's going in a sports bar and they want to watch a football game on it. Well, you don't realize that you stretch that's not going to look very good. So just be mindful of what the content is going to be and how it's going to be arranged.
Just to add to that as well, as at Infocom this past June, our content was played in the LG booth, and you could see it in a variety. You could see it Samsung and a lot of different places, but in the LG booth we created basically it's called a media pole. It was 4 vertical panels towered on top of each other, so it had a resolution of about 3,600 pixels tall by only about, I think, 1,200 pixels wide, and it had a really, we can cut and shape content because we're sourcing content from 4K and 8K imagers, and so we can take awesome strips and you can actually pixel map that accurately, and so you're not compressing the signal, you're not scaling, nothing to do with that, and actually there are content options out there. There aren't a lot. Our company is one of them that provides those, but that can really make some interesting video wall configurations come to life, have them be pixel mapped, and have you be able to get close to them in a way that, like Brian was saying, we had a client as well who insisted on a 2x4 video wall, 2 rows of 4 panels wide, and the plan was to push a normal terrestrial cable signal through onto those panels, and it didn't look great. And we put our signal on there, which our 1080p signal for our players is 24 times the quality of Blu-ray. So that's a really great fidelity signal, but because it's still a 1920 by 1080 being spread out over 8 panels, it's just not going to give you the look that you want, and that's where I think UHD is really going to help change some of that, as well as it gives you that pixel density, and if you can source the proper content with the proper playback, you're going to find some really dynamic installations out there.
And that's very custom, obviously. Yeah. April?
Yeah, I think along the note of content, we always, it seems like sometimes in AV, we start a little bit backwards in the process, right? A customer has no idea, what a solution will cost them, and they sort of want to get that general idea before they figure out, how they're going to use it, what kind of content they're going to be putting on it. But by the time that you get to the point where you revalidate the pricing, and confirm the configuration as far as an equipment schedule, you find out that their content is totally something that doesn't work with, whatever was originally constructed. So I think the sooner that our integration partners can, become part of that process with the end user and get them thinking about content, really how are they going to use it, what are they going to put on it, is it going to be text, is it going to be graphics, what kind of speed are they looking for? What are they hoping to achieve by, deploying a video wall? Those are really some questions that, really need to be asked up front. And I think so many times we get calls, we need a quote on a 2x2, or we need a quote on, so many, a 55-inch panel, rather than sort of starting with the real application first. We sort of start with the size and price.
Just-
We get that question all the time. They want to put their displays in portrait mode, and they say, where on the menu can I get the content in portrait? And it's like, no, it's done with the content, not the display itself.
Yeah. But I actually have a question for you. Since you're on the projector side and the flat panel side, this is a question I think a lot of people are wondering. At what point in time, I mean, the panels are getting larger and larger and larger, and you make projectors, and aren't they taking away from the projector business? At what point in time, what is the size trade-off? Like, is it now anything smaller than 70 inches should definitely go to a panel, or anything smaller than 80, 90? Where's the cutoff there?
Yeah, we see in the corporate market, and I work particularly with the consultants, and we see a lot of the 70, 80, and 90-inch screens that are being deployed in most of these conference rooms these days, which are replacing our projector market. No question there. I think when we look at our education market, I don't think the flat panel display can enter that market because of the size of the room and the depth of the room. It's just, you're not large enough at that point to have a teaching tool at that point. So, when the displays are going up to 150-inch, it's kind of cost prohibitive in a lot of in the education market, certainly. So our projector market, high, K through 12, higher ed is still a great market. And then again, it goes back to that edge blending, trying to utilize projecting. Like we were talking about solid state lamp technology. Lamp hours now at 10,000 hours, they become a viable product that we can do digital signage with them in certain applications.
Yeah, and you have actually a fairly large line of short throw projectors as well.
And exactly, and we'll go with our short throw projectors, and that brings up a good question, because we have really pushed that into the short throw into the education market. But I've got a lot of inquiries of going into a 1080p product into the short throw for the corporate side. So we still see that viable. Again, it goes with, I guess, architects and what they're looking for. I mean, they're looking for aesthetics, and instead of having a projector hanging in the middle of the room, they'd rather hang something on the wall. I think from a labor standpoint, a flat panel is less expensive to mount.
I will bring up one point. So my daughter's school is looking at replacing projectors in some of the rooms where they've had problems with the throw ratios and stuff. And I suggested that they use larger flat panel displays, there is an issue, because in an elementary and middle school, you still want to have use of the front of the room, and I actually spec'd the Premier LCD slider. I don't know if you know about that product, but you mount it. What? You still call it the LCD slider? Or is there a name for it?
Flat panel slider.
Flat panel slider, okay. And so it actually mounts on a slide, and you can actually slide it back and forth on the front of the room. Of course, it's limited in size, I think, and how big of a panel it can handle because of the weight. But so I do think there are applications, and even K through 12, where you can put in panels, and it ultimately can save you some money.
Absolutely, too. And we start talking about interactivity too. We talk about touch overlays, and something it can be a tool for flat panel displays in that environment, definitely.
Yeah. Another question, Melody?
A question tweeted in about regarding bring your own device and people bringing in their iPads and how the trends addressing that.
Yeah, actually, it was one of my questions I was going to ask the panel, because there is BYOD is sort of a buzzword. Everybody's using it in every industry, not just our industry. But there are applications. Like if you're teaching and you have students, or especially if you're doing a class on coding, or you're doing a class where you're having them do an exercise in class, and you have your presentation up, and all of a sudden you want to throw their presentation up, it's not exactly easy to do in the old world of AV, but now we have all sorts of tools that make it a lot easier. Who wants to tackle this? Because there's a lot of ways you could do it. One way is use 4K display and tile the screen. Another way is to use a Barco ClickShare type product.
Yep. Well, you mentioned the Mitsubishi Cloud projectors in your presentation earlier today, and unfortunately they exited the business this week. But I'm sure we're going to continue to see that technology integrated into projectors and other displays where you can use an app on your mobile device, essentially almost like a built-in AirPlay or something comparable to that, right in the display.
And two, you've got, with a product like the Barco ClickShare, you've got a solution that really does allow dealers from an ad hoc perspective to be able to bring their own device in, which is that BYOD acronym. That's definitely a buzz acronym that's taken off. But with a product like that, you have the ability to create your own little ad hoc collaboration environment between the laptop or the device and the display that it's going to. So, and really the key there is kind of the on the fly. It's really kind of the value proposition of that particular technology that's really strong, is the ability for people to come in, take the little, because what they do, if you guys have seen the product or not, but they make a little product that has this little AV streamer button that's a little HID compliant device that just plugs into your USB port on a laptop and allows you to then take that content and share that content wirelessly to its base station to then be displayed. And so we're not here to necessarily promote specific products, but technology like that, and we have it here on display, technology like that is a very powerful tool that's, Brian mentioned there's Air Media, and other manufacturers have solutions out there right now that address that. Crestron has their AirPlay, or their Air Media piece, Apple has their AirPlay. So there's pieces out there that are going after that collaboration market, but what makes this particular technology unique is that it's a hardware environment. So you're not occupying your Wi-Fi adapter to connect to something. You're actually creating, by plugging something into the device, you're creating literally a hardware connectivity from the PC to the receiver that is its own little hardware communication environment. So now I don't have to occupy what's going on in my laptop to connect to something to share content. I can allow this button to do that to the base station, and away you go.
On the ClickShare though, if Huawei were going to use it wouldn't, we have the security on the laptops was giving it free.
Right.
So we couldn't get the little applet off of the USB device to load to the laptops.
Right.
Well,
whereas the Air Media actually worked.
Right, but that's true, but and again, we don't have to go into the weeds on the product, but we can maybe talk offline. But that device, just so you know, that device is set up so that it will run, because it's HID, it will run without having to load the driver onto the computer itself. So, and
So
we
if
can
you hit
talk.
the button, it would have appeared on the screen.
There's still little pieces in the weeds though, and it wouldn't play up our
Because y'all have
Oh,
some
I
sort
see.
of- you
I
have
see.
some
I
sort of
see.
lock
It doesn't even
on
let you
the
bring a
laptop.
thumb drive. Like you couldn't even plug a thumb drive into your laptop, basically, right? Is that what in that application?
We can use a thumb drive, but it wouldn't run. It wouldn't run the product. Not to get into the weeds. Our security.
Yeah.
You can imagine a little bit.
Yeah.
But I would think a lot of people's are. A lot of companies are.
Yeah, we haven't
Yeah.
run into that problem. It really has not been. In fact, actually, the fact that it's HID compliant has actually made it very IT friendly. So we have not had that issue. So.
We talk a lot about wireless, but also even traditional connectivity like wall plates and table connectivity. We're seeing a lot of products now that are offering multi-format transmitters into your signal distribution network, so that you could take legacy VGA or composite as well as HDMI and go through your transmitter and transmit over a single cable over HD-base-T. So no matter what device somebody comes into the room with, they can still plug in.
April?
Also, when you think about what Samsung is doing, they basically have considered not just bring your own device, but also the collaboration piece into a number of, basically they're trying to bring that strategy across the product line, whether it's in tablets or something like the Smart School demonstration that you've been seeing here at the show. Basically, students in that application could bring in their own device, have it work along with the teacher's, system for that whole learning system, and basically share the screen. The teacher can do collaborative learning and teaching with those products. So the students are able to use their own, Galaxy tablet in that classroom environment to work along with the displays as well as the software that goes along with that.
Yeah, I think the big question will be which one of these will sort of win out, or will there be multiple standards? Because right now, each company is using their own way of doing things. Barco did buy the company that basically most of those other companies are using as their back end to do the wireless stuff.
A-Wins.
Right, A-Wins, which is, the same company that most of those, the same technology that most of those other companies are using. So ultimately, I think they do control that, even the Crestron.
And you're going to see the expansion of the ClickShare product to support you being able to go either direction.
Yeah.
So you'll see that.
I like the ClickShare product, by the way.
So when is NEC coming out with a ClickShare product?
Well, we partner with a different company that basically just bring your own device, but
Yeah,
it's absolutely.
every projector manufacturer has a solution
Oh,
for
yeah,
that now.
yeah.
It's not, we're focusing on these because they're on the show floor, quite honestly, more than they're better than one or the other. All of them, and that's the point, is that every manufacturer sort of has their own way of doing it,
Right.
and there isn't one emerging leader technologically. Did you have a question?
Yeah, do you have a guesstimate, I mean, crystal ball of how long we'll have to actually do wiring, HDMI and hardwire?
Well, I'll tell you, I do. That's a really good question. It's a really good question. The thing is, it depends on the application. Because, for example, in my house, I have wireless HDMI going to my theater, and the projector because I never ran any other wire to it. Sure, I could have broken up the walls and gone and done it, but you know what? I tested all the 3 or 4 different ones that all had certain claims, and I found one that I was really, really satisfied with, and knock on wood, I've had it now a year, and it's worked flawlessly, right? But that's not a mission-critical application. That's an entertainment application. So it's sort of like wireless networking has been around for a long time, and in fact, wireless networking is even faster, speed-wise, than the infrastructure in most wired networks. For the case of a large corporation or an educational institution, because they've got a huge infrastructure of 100 base T stuff or whatever bandwidth stuff they have. Yet there's still a lot of wired connectivity going on, even though the wireless is available, because of examples that you just brought up, like Boeing. I suspect that there may be a lot of wireless in the building, but there's certain things that they're not going to ever put on a wireless network because they want to maintain control of whether it gets out or not. So I think personally it's going to be sort of very much an application-based thing for a long time, because there's always the issue of security. But most applications that most of us will work under, I believe, will be primarily wireless within a couple, 3 years. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't go mostly wireless with most of your stuff. But that begs the question, right? And none of us really know the answer to this, but we are all interested in this, is when these companies are going to come out with the perfect box that sort of manages all that, right? Because that means you now got to manage all your network content, but you've also got to manage your audio content, your video content, both directions, and also everything else you might ever do. So that's a good question. I mean, everybody, even the consumer manufacturers, it's sort of like parallel to who's going to win the cloud war. You got Amazon Cloud, you got iCloud, you've got Microsoft with their cloud desktop applications. It's sort of mirroring that. I mean, everybody still wants to be able to travel on an airplane and still work on Microsoft Word. And if you're only using cloud applications, when you open up your laptop, guess what? You can't actually work on Microsoft Word. You're stuck with no application. So I think that it sort of mirrors that. But technologically, we're there. I mean, we're as close to being there as we could possibly be. And then if you do want to use wired, I mean, HD-based T is a real good trade-off there. And then, of course, the other issue is my wireless HDMI will not handle 4K. So like if I upgrade my system and I want to go 4K, it doesn't have the bandwidth, so I'm going to have to change all that out, right? Whereas if I'd have run a wire, then it probably would have been able to, possibly. I shouldn't say would have definitely, but possibly. We have time for one more quick question. Does anybody have another technology-related question? No? All right. So well, then if there's no other questions, I'm going to thank the panelists for being here. But most importantly, I want to thank NEC for sponsoring this and providing the frozen drinks that we had, and thank Almo for putting this on, and hopefully this has been really helpful. This was recorded and streamed live, but it's also recorded, and we'll post this with a link to the Almo website Monday, so you'll be able to play this back or show other people if you have any questions about it. And hopefully our panelists will stick around for a little while because I know there's a couple of you that may have some private questions out there that you were willing to ask out loud. So hopefully you guys will stick around for a few minutes. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you. Thank you.